Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to our third and final listening session. This one here is specifically for the youth, so I'm glad to see that there are youth here with us. Um, are we all ready to get started? Okay. Who's going to be our first speaker?
Okay. Katrina, would you like to go first, or would you prefer someone else to go first?
Maybe someone else.
Okay, no problem. I think then maybe what we can do is we can play Joan Mazik's pre-recorded comments.
Okay. So should I introduce it?
So, yes.
Is he on the call?
I don't see Joe on the call.
Okay.
But I'm going to share my screen, everyone, and we're going to play some pre-recorded comments from a White Plains resident
An NAACP.
And an NAACP member who was kind enough to submit his video comments to us ahead of time. So let's see, here we go.
You could share audio?
I think so.
Good evening. My name is Joe Major. I've been a resident of White Plains since 2001. Our 3 children are all graduates of the White Plains school system, including my son David with special needs. I'm also a member of the White Plains very proud for the community's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It should be. It's a terrific achievement. Daily robocalls from our mayor emphasize the decisions that rely on fact-based evidence and science. This evening, I wish to share with you some fact-based evidence on the topic of civilian oversight structure. This is one of the 5 focus areas identified by our NAACP branch in response to Executive Order number 203. Question 1. Is the number of complaints against police officers affected by the presence of a civilian oversight body? Here's the fact. The Bureau of Justice Statistics study on use of force complaints in cities with more than 100 officers indicates that communities with civilian oversight receive 11.9 complaints per 100 officers, and those without civilian oversight receive 6.6 per 100 officers. It can be argued that the presence of an oversight body helps overcome the fear of filing a complaint against a police officer. This is from Civilian Oversight of the Police in Major Cities, sponsored by the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, U.S. Department of Justice, 2018. Among all agencies having a civilian review board in their jurisdictions, the overall rate of citizen force complaints was higher than those not having civilian review board, 158 per agency versus 18 per agency. This is from the Citizens Complaints About Police Use of Force, U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, 2002. My comments are, the fact that White Plains receives very few citizens' complaints does not mean that we don't have enough activity to justify the expense of a civilian oversight structure. The low number of complaints may indicate a lack of trust by members of the community, especially those marginalized by race, gender, or mobility. A truly independent civilian oversight structure with subpoena power may restore that trust in a fair, transparent, and just process. In 2003, 19% of large municipal police departments had a civilian complaint review board, or agency within their jurisdiction that was empowered to review use of force complaints against officers. About 1 in 4 of those civilian review boards had independent investigative authority with subpoena power. Question 2. What happens to the outcome of complaints once a civilian oversight structure is adopted. Here's the fact. The overall percentage of complaints sustained was lower in jurisdictions having a civilian review board, 6% versus 11%. These jurisdictions were also less likely to find complaints to be unfounded, 23% versus 31%, or exonerate officers, 18% versus 26%, and more likely to find complaints not sustained, 42% versus 25%. That fact is from Citizen Complaints About Police Use of Force, United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, 2002. My comments. Once a civilian oversight structure is in place, fewer complaints against
Hey, look, man, in my opinion, I think all cops are fucking stupid. You know what? Like, fuck the police.
There were
I don't know what you're trying
funded complaints, and police personnel were exonerated at a lower rate, 18% with a civilian oversight structure versus 26 exonerated in the absence of a civilian oversight structure.
I'm so happy you guys are trying to reform this shit, and I support you guys trying to reform it.
What are the benefits of civilian oversight structures? Here are the benefits from three perspectives: from complainants, from the police, and from local elected and appointed officials. Complainants have reported that they feel validated when the oversight body agrees with their allegations, or when they have an opportunity to be heard by an independent overseer, regardless of the outcome. They are satisfied at being able to express their concerns in person to the officer, and they feel they are contributing to holding the department accountable for officers' behavior. Police administrators have reported that citizen oversight improves their relationship and image with the community, has strengthened the quality of the department's internal investigations of alleged officer misconduct, and reassured the public that the process is thorough and fair. It has made valuable policy and procedure recommendations as well. Local elected and appointed officials say an oversight procedure enables them to demonstrate their concern to eliminate police misconduct, reduces in some cases the number of civil lawsuits or successful suits against their cities or counties. Those facts are from Citizen Review of Police, Approaches and Implementation from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, National Institute of Justice, March 2001. And here's the final question. Just what are the triggers for civilian oversight in America? In fact, much of the writing on civilian oversight indicates that it tends to emerge out of local crisis involving local police and community complaints over racially disparate policing and excessive uses of force. The data supplied that view. The most common trigger involved force-related incidents, 49%. Just under 30% of the agencies indicated that racially biased policing played a role in the development of oversight. Notably, only 11% of the agencies indicated that they implemented their oversight agency as a proactive or preventative policy effort and not as the result of a specific critical incident. That fact is from Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, Assessing the Evidence, which was sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton, Inc. and the Office of Justice Programs, DOJ, September 2016. My comments? Today, White Plains does not have a civilian oversight structure. The notion that the Department of Public Safety is somehow an independent civilian oversight structure for the White Plains Police Department is totally unacceptable. Our city has yet to put the Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. shooting on November 19th, 2011 to rest. Philadelphia officers shot and killed Walter Wallace Jr. on Monday after he threatened the officers with a knife in the midst of a behavioral crisis. A set of facts almost identical to the Kenneth Chamberlain shooting. Does White Plains have to wait for another force-related tragedy and take on another ugly scar before adopting an independent, accountable civilian review structure? White Plains is better than that. Let's seize this Executive Order 203 opportunity to build a solution that balances the needs of both the community and its police personnel and strengthen the trust we have for each other. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on civilian oversight structures. Please contact the White Plains Greenberg NAACP branch if you are interested in learning more.
Is Joe on? Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that. Very informative. Now we're going to start with the youth. We have some youth who would like to talk and voice their concerns. So if you have something you want to say, put it in the chat box.
Let us know that you want to speak.
Yeah, let us know that you want to speak by putting it in the chat box. All right? We're here for you tonight. So who's going to be first? Can they raise their hand?
I would like to speak, Joe.
Joe? Joe Kennedy, okay. Joe Kennedy?
Okay. Joe Kennedy?
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I'm Joe Kennedy. I'm a freshman at Manhattan College and a former member of the White Plains Youth Court. I don't know who that was before who interrupted while during the pre-recorded message, but I know that every other youth here tonight would not act that same way, and I know we were all probably pretty embarrassed by what was said because we're here to enact meaningful and proper reform and not just spout further rhetoric that separates the two groups. As to what was presented earlier, while I do think citizen oversight on police activity is a positive thing, to me, it's kind of the wrong language, and it's always presented a very scary idea that the police aren't, in fact, part of our community. In the United States government, we're a federalized system, and at the highest, most power, you have the citizens in charge of the military. The military is not in charge of itself. This is to prevent coups. But to suggest that, the police are a separate entity that need citizen oversight is almost making them sound like a militaristic organization, which they're not. They are also citizens and part of the community. And the deepest problem, and the reason why there are so many tragic instances of police brutality and other such cases, is because the police aren't connected and intertwined with the community that they're swore to protect. And I think that's the key issue that needs to be addressed in any state and any local area. And maybe it's not our place to say what goes on in rural Indiana versus Portland, Oregon, but it is our place to say what happens here in White Plains, and we can lead by example. And I think that the White Plains Police Department does a very good job leading by example. Besides the case of the incident in 2011, there hasn't been any instance that I can recall of action from the police that harms the community. In White Plains, we have a very strong sense of community, and they're in our schools, they're in our neighborhoods, and they know us and we know them. And first and foremost, they want to help. And I think in White Plains, because we have that sense of community, we can also have that sense of leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those comments.
So next we have Julie Salvador, and Julie is going to be introducing some members of the White Plains Youth Court who have individual statements to make,
Great.
to read.
All right.
Julie?
Hi, good evening. I'm Julie, and I want to start by saying Youth Court expresses its appreciation for the community's police force and its involvement in our dedication to justice. However, we all agree that no establishment is absolutely perfect, and the White Plains Police Department may be an example of that. Personally, transparency is key. I don't know much about the training that the police department goes through since I'm not a citizen, but I am part of Youth Court, and therefore I can't make specific assumptions. So that explains like my first recommendation, publicizing the details of the training. Publicizing the details and what the training the officers go through would benefit the department and the citizens. The public can then critique or observe the hours dedicated and what subjects are covered. I noticed that on the website, it lists training in handling domestic violence, procedural justice, cultural diversity, and other human topics like that, but not to what extent it really goes into. So releasing that information would allow accountability and open up a lot more effective communication. Thank you. And next is another student from Youth Court, Josh Cooper.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Josh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Cooper, and I'm currently in the White Plains Youth Court. I'd like to take this opportunity to voice my personal opinion on the White Plains Police Force. I've never had any run-ins or direct contact with the White Plains Police, and I don't live in the town, so at first it was pretty hard for me to form a strong opinion, and I have never really spoken to anyone who has told me of a good or bad experience with them. That being said, I did do some research on the White Plains Police Force, and I only found one incident in the last several years. A Black man named Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. was unfairly killed in 2011 by a run-in with the White Plains Police. More recently, after the saddening death of George Floyd, there were peaceful protests held in White Plains I read about. The police department and the White Plains officials were in complete support of the people and spoke out, saying that they were going to pay more attention than before to prevent any bad cops with violent tendencies from being part of the force. In 2015, the White Plains actually formed a committee to further diversify the force in other departments. And this has allowed me to believe that the town's police they're on the right path, and they know they have work to do to improve the conditions, hence forming a committee recently. And after reading all the only positive things about them, I have no reason that I know of to assume that there are any serious problems with the department. This goes to show that a few horrific cases of police injustice do not represent an entire operation, but there is always room for improvement.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Tiana Thompson.
Hi, my name is Tiana Thompson, and I'm a part of White Plains Youth Court. I want to speak about the police today. The police are here to protect us. We should be able to call on them for help no matter what it is. Today, even though I have never gone through it myself, my brothers and sisters have. Police brutality is a real thing. I have not seen it in White Plains, but others have seen it in their neighborhood. In the future, when I have my Black children, I do not want them to be afraid of walking down the streets some way children are today. I think the police have police committees the same way teachers from other schools know other teachers. The police should encourage one another to carry out the law in a respectable manner without unnecessary force, in the same way we here at Youth Court do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Okay. So for now, we have no more youth who want to speak. So we're gonna be here until 9. So there's plenty of time for someone to decide they want to speak if they have something they want to say. Right now, we're gonna hear from Katrina Jackson. She's a committee member and White Plains resident. Katrina?
Katrina,
You must go to the
go to
podium.
the podium. Yeah, I think that would be better.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. I'm on the Accountability and Transparency Subcommittee of the Police Reform. And I shared in our committee meeting that I've had a few incidents with White Plains Police personally. And for those reasons, I deem it absolutely necessary that we need to have the Civil Oversight Board or Civilian Complaint Board, some type of board, some kind of outside entity to investigate officers that act inappropriately. I've lived in White Plains since 1978 until the current. I grew up here. I went to White Plains Public Schools from elementary straight through to White Plains High School where I graduated. I've since raised my children here and my grandchildren are now here attending schools in White Plains. I emphasize these points to let you know the roots that I have here in White Plains and my heart's desire to have things in White Plains that are not acceptable to be reformed, to be acceptable. I'm just gonna I'm gonna share a story. It's kind of lengthy. I'm gonna try to minimize all the complete details, but to try to pinpoint the necessary details so that you can get an idea of the dynamics of the situation. 1995, I was processing for New York City Police Department as a candidate for NYPD. All of those dreams came to a halt one night in May 1995. I was working in New Rochelle, New York. I'm on my way driving home down Mamaroneck Avenue. I think coming into White Plains would be southbound on Mamaroneck Avenue. Anyway, at this particular, it was about maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And a police patrol car was coming in the opposite direction. And as soon as he passed me, he made a U-turn and came behind me. So came up to follow me. And I wasn't sure, but I made sure I checked my speed because I couldn't understand why he did the loop around. That was obvious. He was coming after me. I checked my speed. I wasn't speeding. I made sure I came to a stoplight. The light was yellow. I stopped. I sat there and waited for it to turn red. This happened from Rhea Drive on Mamaroneck Avenue all the way down to Burke Rehabilitation Center. So in the process, I passed about 3 lights. Every one that turned yellow and every one I stopped, making sure that I was going the speed limit, which I had been the whole time. Needless to say, as I proceeded to go through the red light, as I proceeded to go through the green light at Burke, which is Gedney Way, the officer who had been following me behind me the whole time finally put his lights on and pulled me over. He came up to the car and he yelled at me, license and registration. And I was in shock, but I was like, okay. And I proceeded to get my documents out of the car. And as I'm getting my documents, I just turned to the officer and I said very politely, excuse me. I said, did I do something wrong? And again, he yelled and said, you didn't have your seatbelt on. I saw you just put it on. I didn't say anything. I did not argue with him. He said, and your headlights out. So, I'm like, okay. So anyway, this traffic stop ended with him saying that I had to come with him in a rude way. I'm thinking this is not a real police officer because police officers don't act in this manner. I'm looking around. I go to proceed to get out the car. This officer is like, get over here, stand here, and yelling at me and pulls out handcuffs to cuff me. And I'm like, you don't have to cuff me. I said, I'll get in whatever car you want to get in. I'm not a criminal. Just let me know what car. He's like, get over here. And he just continued to be rude, told me to shut up, or else he was going to charge me with resisting arrest. We go from this point to the police station where he's, get over there. And she's getting charged with resisting arrest. From this point in the police station, I'm there, standing against the pole, pacing, and he comes over, yells at me, stand still before I cuff you to the pole. This officer threatened me numerous times throughout this time. In between, I did call my parents to come get me. They had came, a bail was posted, I believe, of $50, whatever. They posted the bail, which I didn't know. I'm still here. And I'm sorry, I'm skipping over because I'm trying to make the story short. I've told this story in detail for years because it's haunted me. At this point, I'm standing and my parents are knocking on the window asking me to come on. They have to go. My child was home. And I said, I can't leave. I can't just walk out of here. They have to let me out. Did you pay bail? And they said, we paid the bail hours ago. So I said, well, why am I still here? And I'm asking the officers, now everybody's ignoring me. In between this whole spiel, the officer continued to threaten me. Stand still. Shut up, or I'm gonna stand still before I cuff you to the pole. The threats were now continually threatened to cuff me to the pole. After this time, I came over to him. He gave me the tickets, and he said to me, "You have to be back here next week. If you don't, you'll be in jail like you are now." So I had asked one of the other officers if I could use, then he gave me my tickets and walked away. So I said, okay, can someone please let me out? Everybody's ignoring me. I asked again. Another officer walked in. I asked him if I could borrow his pen. When I asked him if I could borrow his pen, the officer who had been harassing me the whole time had then charged me and shoved his badge in my face and said, what do you want to write down? My badge number? Here's my badge number. And I politely said to him, I don't need your badge number. I have your badge number on these tickets. He says, that's it. You're getting charged for no insurance and you can't leave until I write it. At this point, I said I had enough. I said, can somebody please open this door and let me out? Because obviously this officer has nothing else better to do. Someone's grandmother is on the street getting robbed and he's in here harassing me, a classmate. Everybody's ignoring me. I stood and I waited and I said to him, I said, look, I said, enough is enough. I've stood here, I've waited, you played your game, you had your fun. Could you please let me out? Could you please open this door and let me out? I'm really tired. I'm really hungry. I've not been home all day. I have not seen my daughter all day. I've been on my feet all day. I said, please, could you open the door and let me out? Please let me go home. He laughs and continues to just stand there, scribbling on a pad. Another officer, who was the sergeant at the time, I think his name was Winters, walked in, and I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "Could you please let me out of here?" I said, "Your officers have nothing else better to do, and I need to go home." He looks around and he said, "Well, what's going on?" To one of the other officers, and I said, "Nothing." He said, the officer said that I'm giving her a ticket and she can't leave until I write it. And I showed him in my hand that I had my tickets. And I said, "I have my tickets." I said, "He's here playing games. Could somebody please open the door and let me out?" He laughs and walks away. So I'm sitting here like, really? This is really going on? At this point, I'm thinking I'm being too quiet. And I started yelling. I said, "Can someone please open the door and let me out?" I said, "I can't believe this is happening to me. And who am I going to call? The police? I'm in the police station." This officer, then I go over to him and I walked up and I moved the paper that he was writing on. And I said, "Could you please open the door and let me out?" He then came charging after me and said, "You're getting cuffed to the pole." I ran over to another officer that was in the precinct, and I said, "Could you please help me, because he's crazy." I ran over to him, and then the other officer that was coming toward me grabbed my arm, pulled my arm away from me, and twisted my arm all the way around to where I'm turned like this, and then pushed me all the way back against the pole, the Holden Bar pole that was in the police station. The other two officers that were standing there, because there were two officers that had came over and were standing on the side of me, like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And then he came and grabbed my arm and pushed me against the pole. So when he pushed me against the pole, and he had, with my arm twisted where it couldn't go anymore, he proceeded to go around and twist it again, at which this point he would have broke my arm. Now I turned my arm back the other way and yanked my arm away from him, and he stood up and looked me in my face. And when the other officer took my arm very nicely and cuffed it to the pole, this officer then punched me in my face, of which my head banged into the wall and my mouth was busted open. Then he runs over to the desk and say, "Oh, she's getting charged with assault of a police officer," and told my parents, "You can go home, because she's not going home today." The table, my father at the time was heartbroken to see his child being assaulted by a police officer, a man, and there was nothing he could do about it. This point, my parents went home. I went to Valhalla. The whole time when now I'm being processed again. They took pictures the first time I went into the station, when he said that I was being charged with resisting arrest. And then the second time with the assault, saying I assaulted a police officer and all these other charges. I spent almost a week in Valhalla. I get to the courts thinking that they're going to see that I've never been arrested in my life, that I've never had any kind of criminal charges, that anything in my background is squeaky clean. They could have subpoenaed my papers from Queens, where my investigator did a full background investigation, where this is May 1995. He kept telling me to hurry up and get my paperwork in, because I would have been in the top of the class to go into the police academy in July 1995 for New York City Police Department, which never happened. The judges, again, after this situation, I'm thinking that when I go to court, that they're going to look at this situation and throw it out, and I'm going to get justice. The judge at that time comes and says, without me saying anything, he's reading whatever the report says and said, oh, she assaulted one of my officers. I'm finding her guilty. I'm making sure that any judge in this courtroom that tries this case, I'm recommending mandatory, I'm sorry. He said, I'm recommending mandatory jail time. I'm recommending that any judge who tries this case sentences her to jail time, and I'm making sure that she's found guilty. I went through lawyers. I had filed a complaint with Internal Affairs. I did everything possible. I reached out to the Human Rights Commission. I reached out to the NAACP. I reached out to every agency I could think of. I called down to Manhattan to contact Kuby, Attorney Kuby. And but during the time, there was another case going on and he wasn't available. Needless to say that I was in White Plains City Courthouse every single week on this charge, where they were asking me to cop out to a plea to 1.5 to 3 years. The first I think was 2 to 4. Then the next offer was 1.5 to 3 years in jail. And that if I didn't cop out to the plea, that I could get more time. Every week, I'm in this court, disrupting my life, traumatized. I never wanted to drive. I never wanted to be in the street. I was afraid that I would be harassed every time I was outside. I never wanted to walk down the streets of White Plains, the town I grew up in. I felt targeted. I felt terrorized. Through this, the outcome of this situation, a year later, I had recommended, I got an attorney from New York City who said to me, they do things different up here. You got to take this plea. And I asked him, what am I hiring you for if you're telling me to take a plea to say I did something I did not do? He said the laws are different up here. They're trying to get you. And I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to fast forward to pinpoint points. Long story short, at the end of it, the attorney that I had gotten was from White Plains, and I recommended that the trial be. I recommended trial. And I recommended that the case be taken out of White Plains because I was afraid of not getting a fair trial. They sent it back to the county. The county kicked it back. They refused to charge me with any charges, where White Plains City Court had to try the case, and it was not from a misdemeanor to a violation. To a violation where the county court doesn't try. The county court doesn't try any cases that aren't felonies. So at the end of it, when my story was told to the judge and the judge heard the confessions from the 3 police officers, he had threw out all the charges except one. And the one he said was harassment in the third degree, something like that. And I was still disappointed. He said it's a violation. It's just like a red light ticket. He said, you can appeal this decision. He said, and he looked back over and said, I'm looking at my notes where Judge Holden recommended mandatory jail time. He said, you can't send somebody to jail over a violation. He said, so I'm gonna have to dismiss that. So throughout this whole ordeal, not only was I unfairly treated by the police department, the whole justice system failed me in that situation. I never got the job. I had since took other police tests. and I didn't get hired. And it's never been brought out to the fact of me, but I'm almost positive it was because of that one situation that blemished my whole record and destroyed my character. Then 2007, February, I'm celebrating my 40th birthday in White Plains. There was an incident where one of the guests that attended the party was disruptive, and they were put out of the restaurant. That person then came, I had my family there, I had friends there. This person that was put out, who became irate, then came, and as my older brother is walking out of the restaurant, hit him in the face with a bottle of one because they couldn't get back in. At this point, the doors were closed, so nobody can get in or out. Police were called. I went outside to approach the suspects. The police drove up a few minutes later, and they're standing there where they were wild and crazy. And so my other brother, then who had left and went home, then walks from down the block and walks up and asks me what happened. And before I can say anything to him, the police officers that were on the scene, where I'm thinking they're going to the door to ask to see what's happened or ask somebody, they approached my brother and they told him to step back, and which he did. Whatever they told him, he stepped back. Where they're telling him to step back, I'm standing on the curb, so was step into the street. Within seconds, they told him to get down on his knee. And he's getting down on his knee, and he's still looking around, like asking, like, what happened, what's going on. And when he got down on his knees, the officers jumped on him. They just jumped on him, tackled him, and started beating him up. Now I'm screaming at them, and the officer that's in front of me telling them, like, what are you doing? So the two suspects that were there ran, they flee. And I'm yelling, like, please stop them, that's the wrong one, it's them. They ignored me. They beat him with a billy club, they beat him with flashlights. They tried to mace him. When I took the mace, and I did interfere, at this point, I took the mace from the police officer and I threw it across the street. At this point, I was thrown down to the ground as well. And then there's this, we're in this, me and my brother, and I'm yelling to the other sergeant that was there, who I remembered from high school. And I said to him, you know me. You have the wrong one. So he looked at me and he was like, get them up. So at this point, we're up, but we're in the police car. They're putting us in the police car. Everybody from the party is coming out, and they're looking in the police car, and they see us in the police car. And they're looking like, why are they in the police car? You have the wrong ones. And the owner of the restaurant ran out and tackled one of the assailants, and that's how that one got caught. The other one took off in a car. We get to the police station. The police officers are in there bragging about how they said, one of the officers' words exactly was, you know how the black stuff is all over the snow? You know, the black tar in the snow? I was just mushing its faces. And they're laughing, chuckling about how they beat up my brother, who was innocent, who had no idea, still had no idea what was going on. Whole side of his face is black from the soot that was in the street. When we get to court again on this situation, they released me ROR, they let me go home, but then we go back to court to come to find out, in the courtroom, they have the one assailant here, they have my brother in the middle, they have the other assailant on the other side. I'm looking like, please don't let the judge say what the charges are, because he will go to jail. Because if he finds out that these two guys on each side of him assaulted his brother, he doesn't care that he's in the courtroom. He's gonna assault them in the courtroom. We leave from this situation. It wasn't until he got home that he found out, that posted bail, that he found out what happened. And at this point, he had to go to the hospital because he had damage to his spine. He had damage to his spine, and his nerves were damaged. He was shaking so bad. In this court, comes to find out that his charges were assault. Again, he was in conspiracy to assault on Larry Jackson, who was our brother, and he came back there to see what was going on because he heard that something happened to his brother. Through this again, we're going to court. We go to trial. His lawyer informed him that if he didn't cop out and take this plea, he wasn't going to see his son. And so he didn't want to take any chances of not seeing his son. So he copped out to a plea and said he did something he did not do. And he wasn't even there. These are just two incidents that happened here in White Plains. No, I'm not anti-White Plains Police. I love my White Plains Police force. I have a lot of friends on the force. It's not about being against the force. It's about being against bad cops. You have good cops, you have bad cops. And it's about making a difference, pointing out whatever happened to us that very night, what happened to my brother on that night, February 22nd, 2007, he could have very well been George Floyd in the city of White Plains at that particular time. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
So I just wanted to give a quick update for youth that are on the call. FYI, the chat is not public, so we set it up that you can send a message to the host. If for some reason you aren't feeling comfortable to, speak and say your message verbally, feel free to send a message in the chat and we will read it out loud for you. Next up, we have a message from a young man.
Emiliano Juarez.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, my name is Emiliano Juarez. I am in 9th grade and I go to White Plains High School. I am from the Westchester County Youth Council. I see that there is a lack of trust in police departments. I haven't had any firsthand experiences with the police department in White Plains, but I have seen this in many other departments around the US. I see this distrust in police departments. Where are the good cops standing up to the bad cops, trying to protect us? I haven't seen any good cops stand up to the bad cops. Where is the exposure? I believe there is a distrust in police departments, one being the White Plains PD, because people don't feel like they are being protected. We feel as if we aren't being protected, primarily due to there being no good cops. If there were good cops, I would see this sort of standing up for what is right behavior, and I would see them acknowledging it to better suit the situation they are in.
Excellent. Thank you. You have another one?
Lena Anderson.
Lena Anderson, you ready? Is she muted?
Good evening.
Hi, Lena.
It's always good to be in a dialogue that may result in change. My name is Lena Anderson, and I'm a member of the Criminal Justice Committee of the White Plains Greenberg NAACP. Some of you know me as its former president. I am so proud of our current president who has been chosen to head this task force. But the committee felt that we needed to make a statement that would sort of gel the branch's position on what we are doing in terms of trying to come together with police reform. And the testimonies I have heard tonight are heart-wrenching. We know that African American parents have to give their kids the talk about how to behave when they are stopped or encounter police. But what you heard from some of our White Plains Youth Council were young people who don't have those fears, who didn't have to have the talk, who feel very comfortable. And so it's important that not only do we do this work to forage out what is bad, because the young lady who just talked about where are the good cops standing up to the bad cops. It is so heart-wrenching. Out of the mouths of babes comes a solution. And this is what's wrong. We saw it when we witnessed George Floyd being killed while others stood around. We see it when we see a gentleman jump on top of a car to shoot a college student instead of letting him flee. It's like you don't dare let a Black man flee. We saw it in Chicago when they went as far as to shoot someone in the back rather than let him flee, even though they had plenty of ways to capture him later. So we're talking about changing a mindset, changing the hearts of people such that the good cops are emboldened to stand up to the bad cops. So like many of these young people, we honor our White Plains Police Department, and for the most part, we're quite proud of them. But we do have to admit that there are issues. And when we make mistakes, we have to be willing to say we made a mistake, because otherwise healing cannot take place. People can't heal if you arrogantly behave as though your behavior was above reproach when clearly it was not. We also have to look at this mindset and the way it impacts African Americans in a disparate way. And we heard that testimony tonight. We all believe that had Mr. Chamberlain lived in Trump Towers, the officers would not have come to his apartment and taken his door off the hinge. He would not have ended up dead. So we are talking, the White Plains Greenberg branch want to put forth a point of view. And we want to put it in such a way that you realize we are going to submit a request for actions to the Police Reform Committee for specific police reform in the following areas. So there is some misunderstanding of what civilian oversight structure means. It does not mean that we are making assumptions about police. It means we are admitting that we cannot count on police to police themselves. And so what we are going to talk more about is an oversight structure with subpoena power. Because if we don't have the ability to subpoena people to appear, there's no teeth. There's no need for such a committee. So we will submit such a request with details. We will also submit a request for anti-bias training, because the things I am generally hearing speak to a need for it. And right now, we are aware that there is some anti-bias training that takes place with new recruits, with new police. So what we are probably going to see is more intervening anti-bias training, things that are ongoing after people are sworn in as police, things that measure and keep track of behaviors in such a way that biased behavior is not sanctioned and is in fact deterred. Then number 3, we want to see transparency through data collection and reporting. We want to see that reporting really break down the data of how many of various types of people, African Americans, brown people, white people, are stopped for various offenses, from traffic stops all the way to more serious offenses. We want to see the data. We want to talk about community policing. What is it? What does it look like? This young man, one of our youth council members, spoke to the need for connection. He is right, spot on. We need a connection. And what we have found is when police work where they live, there is a connection. I grew up in White Plains, and my policeman, who I called Bill, was my babysitter from 3 to 5 because I got home before my parents did. And they felt comfortable telling me to sit with Officer Bill until they got home. And Officer Bill felt comfortable and responsible enough to us as a community to say, that's okay. Community policing takes on multifaceted behaviors, and we want to talk about what those are. And finally, we want a behavioral and mental health crisis management unit. We do have some things in place now that involve social workers, and we are aware of changes that have been made since Mr. Chamberlain's killing that manifests itself in a way that mental health professionals are available as consultants to the police. We really want to make it a priority in the sense of budget, so that we don't end up saying, well, we have to cut back on that, as one of our former Westchester County people did, and we end up with nothing. We want to have behavioral and mental health crisis management woven into our policing model. So our request for action will take into consideration the content of these 3 listening sessions. We're grateful for the time to hear the concerns of all the members of the White Plains community, but we're fearful that we have not heard enough. So we will be generating a questionnaire. We will generate it through our churches and organizations so that people who were not able to access us via internet will have another way to give us input. We will prayerfully be able to consider all of the input we get. And we are so happy that our government, our White Plains government, saw fit to really enable a committee that would address all the concerns and issues to end up in a new view of policing for White Plains. So our NAACP branch and its members, we welcome this opportunity to work with the city of White Plains, and we look forward to strengthening the positive elements of the White Plains Police Department culture in place and transforming areas where constructive change is needed. So I thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
Our next speaker is Kayla Ross.
Hi, my name is Kayla Ross, and I'm a senior at White Plains High School. Fortunately, I haven't heard or seen any problems within the White Plains Police Department, but I do want to stress the importance of community involvement. It's people like me who will be running the world in the next decade, and I don't know if my research was good enough, but I do know that I had a hard time finding the policies of the White Plains Police Department. It's important that we know these policies because in order to give you guys better advice and critiques, we can then go on from there. On another note, I'm asking you to make sure that all White Plains policemen and women have good intentions. I believe one solution to bettering policing is hiring those who have the intent to do better, people who want to make a change, and policemen and women who care about people like you and me. I care a lot about this community and the future of it, and I'm just asking you to be thorough with those who you hire to enforce the law here in White Plains. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Put a call out for,
I'm sorry.
put a call out for anyone else wishing to speak.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? Anyone else? Not yet, not right now.
Any young people on the call that have comments, questions, concerns, we might not be able to answer all your questions at this time, but we would love to hear them. This is a part of the time where we're giving you time to be a voice that's heard. So if you have anything, and like we said, if you're feeling like you don't want to put on your video and you don't want to speak out loud, feel free to direct it to the host in the chat directly, and we could read it out loud from there.
We're gonna be here till 9 o'clock, so if you come up with something, let us know. I heard today, all of them were really helpful to us.
Would it be helpful for me to read the names of the committee members once again? Because we have a kind of a new audience this time.
Sure. Okay. All right. Sharon's going to read the names of the committee members again because we have quite a few new people or first-time people on the Zoom. So for your information, we're going to share the committee members.
So our committee chair, as you've been hearing from, is Janice Griffith.
It's me.
Janice is president of the White Plains Greenberg branch of the NAACP. Also on the committee, I'm going to say their names in alphabetical order, Joseph Castelli, who's our police chief here in White Plains. Merlene Chauvette, who is a White Plains resident and who also works at the Slater Center. Rosemarie Eller, president of the White Plains Board of Education, White Plains resident. Kayla Garcia, also a White Plains resident, who happens to work for El Centro Hispano and also Westchester Community College. Wade Hardy. Wade is a member of the Westchester Rockland Guardians Association. Katrina Jackson, a White Plains resident. Brian Johnson, who is with the White Plains PBA. Michelle Jones, a student at White Plains High School. Nada Cater, director of Westpac Foundation. Harriet Lowell, chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities. Patrick McCarchuk from the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. Kimberly McNair with My Sister's Place. Patrick Shelley, who is part of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. Captain James Spencer, Community Advocacy and Strategic Initiatives Division, White Plains Police Department. Donald Stevens, resident and a deacon at Little Mount Zion Holy Church. Bernie Toms, a security consultant for the White Plains Housing Authority. Judy Troilo, executive director of the Loft LGBT Community Services Center. The Reverend Erwin Trollinger, Calvary Baptist Church. Isabel Villar and Judith Alcar, the director and deputy director at El Centro Hispano. Marie Vitali, a resident and local criminal defense attorney. Frank Williams, director of the White Plains Youth Bureau. And Richard Wilstatter, a resident and longtime criminal defense attorney in White Plains.
There you have it. That's the White Plains Police Reform Task Force. Someone else?
So we have a question from Kayla. You asked, where can I further read up on the White Plains Police Department policies? That's a great question.
Is it on the website? Is it? We're working on making that more visible, right?
We have a number of policies that we have put up on the Police Reform Committee webpage. So you can get to that webpage by going to cityofwhiteplains.com/police reform. And if you scroll down, you'll see links to PD policies and procedures.
Okay, we're gonna be here till 9 o'clock, so we're just waiting. If you have anything you want to say, anybody, is that any, have anything they want to say? This is the time.
You may want to tell them the process and how this is going to unfold and what the purpose of all the procedures is.
Just in case you don't know, am I muted?
No.
This is our third listening session. The first two were open to the public, and we got a lot of information, comments from the community. This one was specifically for the youth, but not limited to the youth. We're going to take the information that we've gotten, and we're going to come together, the committee, we're going to come together, and we're going to dissect it, go over it, see how we can work it, make it better. We're going to be looking at the policies, we're going to be looking at the procedures, and we're going to try to see what we can do to make White Plains an even better community. I heard a lot from people saying that the community was good, and most of us already know that. We do agree that White Plains is pretty good, but it does have room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. So what we are going to try to do is keep tragedies that have happened in the past and that are happening all over the country from happening again by putting things into place that will, help those things from continuing to happen around White Plains. So we need your help. If you have ideas, if you have input, this is the time to share it. Any of the committee members want to talk about what they're doing? Did somebody raise their hand? No.
Okay, so Nizam has inquired, what is the next step, the next meeting? What is the plan moving forward?
The next step is that the committee will meet, and we've already divided ourselves into groups. We've broken the committee members into 5 different groups, and there's about 3 to 5 people in each group, and we're going to look at the policies, look at the procedures. We're going to talk to the chief. We're going to talk to the captain. We're going to take tours of the facility, the police department, and we're going to make recommendations based on what we've heard, based on what we've seen, based on what we know. We're going to make recommendations, and then we're going to put it in writing.
Janice, you're muted. We can no longer hear you.
That's my fault. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry to make you say that again, Janice. That was so well said the first time.
Yeah, practice.
I don't remember what I said.
So what are the next steps? What are the next steps?
Okay, so after tonight, the committee will get together and we're going to start dissecting all the information that we have gotten from these past 3 listening sessions. The committee has already been broken down into 5 groups. We have an accountability and transparency group. We have policies and procedures. We have training and equipment. We have what am I missing? Community engagement and
Transparency,
and-
accountability.
yeah, I said that one.
Equipment.
Yeah. Qualifications and recruitment. So those are the 5 groups that we have. There's about 3 to 5 people on each committee, each subcommittee, and it's going to be their job to take the information that they got from these listening sessions, that they have experienced, that they have read about, and start digging in, getting in touch with the chief, getting in touch with the captain, talking about how we can make things better where they need to be made better. After we all come together and we present our findings and start making our recommendations, we will present it to the council and the mayor. At that time, they will tell us what they think of our ideas, whether they think it's good or whether they think it's not, if we should tweak it, modify it a little bit, and then we will make another presentation to the council until we get what we're looking for. And then at that point, they will, by April 1st, they will have to present that to the governor. So between now and I would say January, February, you still can reach out to any of the committee members and let us know if something comes up, if you think of anything. And we're all listed, all our names and our emails listed on the website, Karen?
Not emails.
Okay.
But we do have the general email.
Oh, we have a
box.
general email address. So you can let us know, you can call us. We have a phone number, we have an email address, and you can let us know anything you want. If you think it might help us, or if it's an incident that you'd like to report, you still have time to do that. We're gonna have about maybe 10 more meetings, maybe more, I'm not sure. But you still have an opportunity. That website will be there for a while. And we will be looking at it on a daily basis. So our goal is to have everything done before April 1st.
Have to have it done.
Yeah, it has to be. Well, our goal is to have it done and have the council agree with what we're asking for, and we'll be in good standings. And White Plains will be even better for it. Can I ask somebody to tell them what they're doing now? Do you want to say something, Frank?
I think we said we wanted to hear something. We didn't want to commit comments. So, I think in our last meeting, we said we were just going to listen and engage.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't want to forget about that tomorrow.
Okay. We still have review.
Hi, Janice. This is Marie Vitale. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just have a question. When we present all our findings to the Common Council, and then they submit the findings and recommendations to the governor's office, I mean, is it the governor's office that has the ultimate say over what is going to, be the final product?
To my understanding, it's going to be the mayor for White Plains.
Okay.
I'm not. It's going to be the council. The White Plains mayor and the council will decide whether they're going to implement our recommendations or not. And then it will be presented to the governor. But I think, and I'm going to double check that and I can get back to you, but I believe that the mayor and the council decide what they're going to adopt from our recommendation.
Okay, great.
It's a good question.
And then we as a local government have to certify to the state that we have complied with the process that they outlined in Executive Order 203, and that we have adopted a resolution accepting the recommendations.
The council.
The council,
Mhm.
correct.
We're going to try to get that into them ahead of time, because if for some reason they're not adopting what we're asking for, we're going to ask them what it is that we need to do to make it adoptable, so then we'll look at it again and see if we can come up with something that they will take on. But we're going to ask for a lot.
We had a question. Are you looking for more people to get involved, or just comments and suggestions? Is the committee locked in, or are we looking for more people and more help?
Right now, I believe that the committee is at the full capacity. I believe that we're not looking for more, but we're always looking for people to let us know what's going on in the community. Reach out to us, give us any information. And if you have some helpful information and we could use it, we'll definitely use it.
Yeah, and I think for people that, adults and youth that are on the call, or that know people that are on the committee, to share your thoughts and experiences with us and things that you want to see, you can always do that if you know somebody, and we will bring those messages back to the committee. You can also email, like we said, to the...
It is police reform at whiteplainsny.gov. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get together with the community one more time. The community will be involved in the recommendations that we come up with. So before we send it to the council, we will be coming back to the community.
It's important to note, I think, that the committee's draft recommendations have to be put out for public comment before they're submitted to the council.
Right. So we will be coming back out to the community so that you can see what we've come up with, and even at that time, you can have a say.
Sorry to interrupt. It's Justin Brash. I have another appointment, so I have to go. So I want to apologize to everybody. I want to thank everybody who's working on the committee and participating and bringing information. And of course, I always thank Janice, because I know she's working like crazy. So thank you to everybody. I'm sorry I have another commitment, and I look forward to working with all of you too. As I always say, make our terrific police department even better. And I know we can make some good improvements. So thank you and good night.
Thank you, Justin. Have a good night.
Hi, this is Marie Vitale again.
Hi, Marie.
Hi. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who spoke, and especially to Katrina. That was a very heart-wrenching story, and I'm sure it took a lot to stand up and tell it. So thank you for that, and thank you to the young kids or students who were here as well. And I just want to note too, I mean, we all have different backgrounds and different perspectives of the police from, based upon our races or ages or sexes, where we live. So it is interesting to hear different perspectives, because I think they're all valid. And I look forward to our recommendations. I was hoping, actually, I see that we do have one council member on still. Victoria. Hi. So another question I have about our ultimate goals. If the Common Council is the body that's going to finally, decide upon what we adopt for the community, and Victoria, you might have spoken about this amongst yourselves, but is this going to have the force of law, local, or just recommendations to the police? Does anybody know exactly how that might play out?
That's a good question.
I don't have an answer for you on that, but I would imagine that we would need to see what the recommendations are of the committee. Let me just take this opportunity to thank the members of the committee for this very, very important work. And for this opportunity we've had twice last week and now this week to hear our fellow community members relate their experiences.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Are you speaking to me? I was not again asking a question, I was responding.
No, you were to whomever said what was the protocol for.
Oh, that was Maria Vitale.
No, I'm sorry. My question was, I guess, who has the ultimate say in what is adopted here in White Plains? If it is the Common Council, is this going to have the force of law? Is this an ordinance, or I guess ordinance is probably not the right word, but is this something that will be adopted and put into, I guess, local law?
Right. I'm only going to speak from my understanding from Governor Cuomo's mandate for the police municipality. So that's the discussion that we're having. Yes.
Yes.
Right. And so from that, we have 43 different municipalities throughout the entire Westchester County. Each police municipality has their own jurisdiction with their own charter, with their own laws and regulations. And I think that everyone was charged with the fact that they had to come up with their own recommendations to the state and putting these in, whatever the recommendations are and what the agreement is, and putting it forth as something that they would adopt that would have a financial impact on the municipalities, because for the entire Westchester County, each municipality patrols itself, with the exception of the county having, the county police, where we do highways and byways, so to speak, and with the exception of maybe 2 other municipalities that we patrol for their communities. So with that in mind, I think this group is coming up with recommendations that they can bring forth to the police chiefs, who ultimately would bring forth a recommendation to their body that has to present this to the state on a whole. So that's my understanding. If I'm incorrect, please, anybody on this call, please correct me in terms of the knowledge that they may have.
Well, one point that has come up repeatedly during these listening sessions is community leaders asking for an independent civilian review board. And for the city of White Plains, the Common Council would have to vote and put that into law. And the city of White Plains would also be responsible for funding the Civilian Review Board for the city of White Plains. So that's one part that's very specific to the local municipality.
I believe that that's across the board. I think that that's a consensus that we've been hearing throughout Westchester County, throughout the 45 municipalities that we have. Is a Civilian Complaint Review Board. Some acting independently. Maybe we can have a consensus where it's a county, or a specific point person, but that's going to be up to all of the municipalities who have their own self-control over their police force. And so you are correct. I think that, like I said, this is something that has been consistent across the board. Everyone wants a Civilian Complaint Review Board across the 43 municipalities that have been meeting so far. And I guess that no one knows who I am. Maybe I can introduce myself. I came in late. Crystal Collins. I work with the county executive. I am part of the police reform, or a liaison for one of the programs and services that we have under this police reform and reimagining group. I'm also, his community liaison, and I'm out there in the community listening to the concerns at large within our Black and Brown communities, and just being that listening ear. So I chimed in a little late. I had other, what we call the virtual world now, responsibilities. And so I joined in a little late, but always a pleasure, Nadia, to be with you and supporting the efforts.
No, when I was getting the COVID test.
I actually have an informational question. I was curious to know more about the youth court, from which we heard some terrific young people speaking to us who are members of the youth court. And I would like to know a little bit about that body.
Somebody still, are they still on? They're not on?
Frank, are you able to speak to the youth court?
I'm sorry?
The youth court?
Well, we had 3 young people who did speak.
Yeah, but
The
they're not
professor
on.
was asking about some background information on the youth court, what it is.
Yeah, I
what it
can
does.
speak. Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to speak about the youth court. So, hi, I'm Frank Williams, Director of the Youth Bureau. And hey, Crystal, how are you? So we formed the youth court as a divergent program for young people who have had violations, minor violations. And we get young people referred to us by county court, city court, probation, and the community can refer young people to us. And it's really a sanctioned youth court. We have about 30 young people involved in our youth court, and they primarily come from White Plains, but many of the students live in White Plains and go to private schools. The coordinator, her name is Connie Jones, and she works in the federal court. And the whole idea behind the youth court is to engage our young people into putting together a voice where young people can exact sanctions and outcomes that keep our young people out of the juvenile justice system. Oftentimes, the youth court situation is an entree into a much larger issue. And when young people are involved with their own peer group, it tends to have a significant impact on their peers. And I can say to you that our recidivism rate is just really off the chart. Hardly anybody, I can't remember anybody having an experience, a recidivism experience as a result of being a part of our youth court program. We partner with the Westchester County DA's office and many of the judges, both the county judges and the local judges in implementing this program. So what are the sanctions? The sanctions generally are that these young people get community service. But we also have these young people involved with our Grandpas United program. We have about 70 grandfathers involved in our Grandpas United program. And our grandfathers are mentoring these young people who receive sanctions as a result of participating in our youth court program. So it's kind of a triple layer system where the youth court are engaged with these young people. We have the county, the city, and our DA partners involved with us. And then we have these men who serve as mentors and guides and concerned citizens who are helping to help these young people get back on the straight and narrow. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing in White Plains. I happen to feel that we have one of the leading youth court, and we've been honored as a result of our efforts here in White Plains. Our mayor is actively involved in it. He often comes to some of our youth court sessions and speaks to our young people about their work. And of course, this evening you've heard, I think you heard about 3 members to speak. And and we've been doing this now for maybe 8, 9, 10 years. Many of the young people who have been involved in this work have gone on to college and to law school. So it is a foot in law, in government, and we should all be proud of the work of these 30 young people in this kind of work. And these young people are concerned about health and safety. They're concerned about the kind of community that we're going to have. They're concerned about police-youth relationships, and they're working with, as I mentioned, with the court system, the probation system, the county court, the family court, as well as the White Plains school system. So they're very much entrenched into this community, and they're made of almost every kind of young people of all backgrounds, of races increase in our community. It is a blended youth program. And young people start when they're in the 9th grade, and they get an extensive 6-8 week training program, and after the training is over, they go right into receiving cases. So right now, I think we have about 5 cases that are pending, and they're meeting at least 2 or 3 times a week on these particular cases. So I'd be happy to take any questions about the youth court program, because we're proud of the work that these young people are doing. Our youth board member, Katrina, is a member of our youth board, and she hears about, and our youth board members hear about their work. So again, we have something that we're proud of in White Plains, where young people are not getting into the juvenile justice, criminal justice system. It is a stopgap for young people who make poor decisions. So if you want to reach me you can reach me at the White Plains Youth Bureau with any questions about the youth court program or any program related to young people here in the city of White Plains. We would be happy to just share with you and comment about our work in White Plains with regards to young people and our work with all of our community partners.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
We have received a couple of comments. If you'd like me to read those. All right, so I'm just going to read a few comments that the Police Reform Committee has received in the past week. And these have come in via email, via that email address that I put in the chat. The first one is a follow-up. A speaker who spoke to us last week sent a follow-up email making a few suggestions about police leadership. Leadership development. There's no doubt police training will be critical to the reform of any police department, but it's critical that the training is community policing oriented and includes scenario-based training. The areas suggested in the training, such as implicit bias and other community understanding oriented training, are critical. Still, even with this type of training, it is important that police supervisors and other leaders are trained to be and become leaders. They need to know how to give feedback to their officers, how to develop new officers, and how to communicate with community members and understand the importance of values, mission, and positive organizational norms. I suggest that you and other members of the committee would be excellent speakers at any leadership program. And then the second point was, and as part of the leadership development plan, I think it is essential to develop future police leaders. I listened to the discussion of youth contact with the police. There are definitely many positive interactions in White Plains. Still, there are numerous young people who want to participate in programs that create leadership. The YPI, which is a youth police initiative, spreads that opportunity, but also engages a wide range of youth in trust building experience. The program can then be linked to a leadership program that teaches conflict resolution, job skills, leadership skills that facilitate support for jobs and college entrance. There is a great opportunity to link the Youth Bureau, social justice groups, scouts, and other groups into a real community leadership program. The committee received another email comment that said, "Dear Police Reform Commission, thank you for your work moving our city and police forward. I am in regular contact with developmentally disabled people in White Plains, and I want to relay some of their concerns. Many developmentally disabled adults do not appear to be different during initial interactions, but in fact have a limited understanding of the world and can be very easily traumatized by seemingly routine interactions. As an example, one young man that I know tells a story about police questioning him. This young man was not doing anything wrong, but he froze up and became very scared when the police spoke with him. The officer responded to the freezing up, became more aggressive in his questioning, which resulted in the young man becoming more scared. The situation de-escalated when a third party who knew the young man intervened. I recommend additional training for these kinds of interactions."
there is another issue, which is that sometimes non-disabled people are far too quick to call the police on people with developmental disabilities. As an example, there are two developmentally disabled men who live together in an apartment building in White Plains. Both of these men are law-abiding citizens with jobs who do their best to contribute to society and to not cause problems. The building supervisor, however, has said that he does not like their kind in the building. When a neighbor complained to the supervisor that the young men were too loud, instead of speaking to the young men or facilitating a conversation between neighbors, the super advised the neighbor to call the police. The young men then received a police citation for a noise violation. They did not understand what happened, except that the police issued a document saying they committed a violation. Although the super should have spoken to the young men or facilitated a conversation in the first place, I would respectfully submit that upon receiving a call from people complaining about a noise violation in an apartment building, the police should first suggest that an adult conversation occur. Both young men are very friendly, and I know that if their neighbors had simply treated them with respect and had a conversation and asked them to turn down the TV or whatever noise upset the neighbors, good relationships could have been built instead of an atmosphere of fear and distrust. Thank you very much for taking the time to read this and for all that you are doing. And then the final comment is actually a question from a resident who says, what is the White Plains Police Reform Committee hoping to accomplish in terms of police bias training? Studies have shown that one-off trainings have not proven effective. There seems to be a need for continual training and education on this. I would even suggest it as something that could be offered to the community at large. I am a woman of color and am constantly educating myself on this topic and have years of unlearning in terms of bias. It would be great for this community to create a program that would not only benefit police reform, but reform in general among the greater White Plains community.
Thank you. Thank you. We've gotten some good comments. Am I on mute? No. We've gotten some good comments, some good feedback from these sessions. And that's very important because it gives us something to work with, gives us something to work with. So I appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. The suggestions, the ideas. Let us know what's going on. Is Reverend Charles on? Is that on? Okay. Our email address is in the chat.
Yes.
members are left on, how many people are left on the call? 24. We still have 24? Okay, that's not bad.
So you may want to close out and thank people for joining us. We got, what, 4 minutes left?
It's ready to start now.
Yeah, 8:56, so you may want to begin closing.
Am I muted? No? I can talk.
No, we can hear every single word, Jenna.
All right, so this brings us to the close of our third and final listening session. I want to thank everyone for their comments, their questions, their ideas, their feedback. We appreciate it. And now the real work gets started. Now we're going to get together and we're going to start putting measures into place. So I appreciate that. Please stay tuned for our next listening community session where we're going to be looking for feedback from you on the ideas and recommendations that we come up with. So that should be sometime after the holidays. So keep, look at our website and it will let you know when that's going to happen. In the meantime, just email us. Let us know what's going on. If anything happens, if you have any questions, let us know. I appreciate every one of you for the work that you're doing. And see you soon.
Thank you, Janice, for convening
Have a good
us.
night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Take care.
Everyone have a good
Good
night.
night.